I'm in the Badlands, camping all teched out with a solar-powered Tesla in my bid to complete the Cannonball run solar alone. First ever attempt in a production EV, with only 240 pounds of solar panels to power and move a 4,000-pound vehicle from New York City to LA. I have a few issues, but sunlight is not one of them, but rather my ability to sufficiently collect it.
All right, it's November 22nd, and I'm going to my last charging location, and that'll be it. I'll be there. So it says I'll get there at 16%. See how accurate it is. It's kind of cold. I think normally I could do better than 16, but with the cold weather, we'll see. I'm going to be dropping quite a bit in altitude, so that's going to help me out. And yeah, got a full charge, so we'll see how it goes.
I'm leaving my first BLM site in Hallbuck, Arizona, and heading to the border of California. I found what looks like the perfect spot, but as usual, it never seems to go as planned. What I thought was going to be a quick few days turned into a full week. Heading to another BLM site, Bureau of Land Management. I was going to get in late, and since I wasn't familiar with the area, I wanted to be able to see it before I set up camp. I decided to stop at a hotel, get a shower, and freshen up. Now I can drive to the site in the morning and pick out the ideal spot. It's going to be cloudy all day anyway, so I'm not missing out on much charging, even if I arrive a little later in the day. But the next 3 days are supposed to be full sun, so the plan was I could leave fully charged in 3 days with plenty of buffer. Well, if you're curious where I've been, this is it. I've got a Google map up with a link in the description. You can see all the stops, starting at the Red Ball Garage, Big Meadow Campground, and I've added a few details in the comments on each of the stops, so you can click on the link and see all the stops along the way. I can update it as I go, so there should just be more and more information if you check back. This is it, near Topeka, Arizona, on the border of California. I can taste the finish line in completing this trip I set out to do over a month ago. I arrived at a vast, open BLM site with plenty of prime real estate to set up my array and start charging. With a tent and a shade tarp, I was ready to relax for a few days, charge up, and be on my way.
All right, I arrived at my final charging location. I got here with 10%. Here's kind of the graph. I didn't do so well. In some of here it was kind of cold. Now that I'm at lower elevation, it's going to be much better. Here, let me check my elevation here. Yeah, so here's what we're looking at here. I'm down at 800 feet. I came down from 3,500, so I made really good economy getting down here. And that's this leg right here. And if I look at my usage, consumption, this is me looking for a spot, so kind of ignore that. But I was at 140 for the last 15 miles. Last 30 miles was 134 watt hours per mile, which is really good. Yeah, so here I started off at my last location. I drove, got a hotel. I didn't want to come in at night again and not know where I'm at. Got a hotel, came in the last leg, all went pretty smooth. I did lose a little bit of energy, just kind of sitting there, 1 or 2%. My tire pressure has gone up because of the temperature. I was around 50 psi. Now that it's warmer, it's gone up. When I was driving, it was up over 54, and it was giving me a bunch of alarms. But I can drop that down soon. I'm almost done. Here was my total trip, 295 miles, 65 kilowatt hours, 219 watt hours per mile. That's pretty good. And I've been cruising 65 miles an hour, which is pretty comfortable. I'm out here. This is a pretty cool looking location. You got a lot of people doing off-road stuff out there, loud music. I'm going to avoid that. This area looks a little more peaceful. I don't see people with their toy haulers and loud music out here. So the array is going to go right here. And it's a little cloudy, but the sun, it's right at about solar noon, so that's going to be directly south. So the array will set up here pointing that way. I got plenty of room. Real flat. Looks perfect. It's an incredible view. Awesome final spot. Only downside is today is Thanksgiving and I'm missing my family a lot. And places are closed. I tried to do some laundry and they were all closed. So I don't know, maybe I'll hand wash some clothes. But then again, I got to conserve water. I didn't bring a ton of extra water. I think I'll only be here today and then 3 full days of charging, and then I'll be on my way. So I probably need to get the panels set up and get what little sun I can today. I mean, it's already 12:41. It's gonna take me 2 hours to set up, so it'll be 3. Sun's gonna set around, well, here it is. Sun sets 5:27, so I'm just gonna get a tail end. I'll probably just get just a few percent, just enough to kind of top off my auxiliary battery, if even that. But anyhow, maybe I'll show you how I use this watch for everything. So this watch is super helpful. I can see where south is, so I've got a nice compass. Altimeter, I'm at 800 feet. That's really handy when I'm setting up, knowing where the sun's going to be. And then while I'm driving, I can watch the last 4 hours, which is usually about how long I end up driving. I can see my elevation changes, so I can kind of monitor my watt-hour use and see if I'm going uphill or downhill on my watch real quick. There's my panels. They're muddy and nasty from the last stop. Hopefully I can get them kind of cleaned up today. And I got some spray. My spray bottle is full. I drain out the water from melted ice in my cooler to conserve water. It's also my emergency backup water, so if I had to drink it, I could. I've got a filter I could run it through, one of those straws. So I could drink it if I needed to. And it's just waste runoff water from melted ice, so I'll get more as my ice melts. So maybe I can use that to kind of spray off these panels, get them cleaned up, or maybe I'll just wipe them down. I don't know, we'll see which is easier. This is my new tent setup. I've got everything in a bag. I've got tent, sleeping bag, sleeping pad. So much easier. I just take the tarp, throw the tarp down, grab that, and I'm ready to go set up a tent. I can get anywhere pretty easy. Here's my water reserves. Again, my nasty dirty panels from getting rained on. I gotta clean these connectors off too. I'll spray them out. I've actually got somewhere here. Oh yeah. Thanks to Fulton, when I was at his farm, grabbed this so I can kind of spray out some of the connectors, keep them kind of clean. They're not too bad, but I just want to keep them clean. I get a lot of gunk on the O-ring, and then they get a little harder to plug in. Like this one, it's getting some goo in there, some dirt, so I'll get that cleaned off, start setting up. And then when I'm done, this car is going to need a real deep cleaning. It's got dust and dirt everywhere. Just annoys me being so dirty. But it's almost over. This is it. This is the last run. Maybe a snack. Maybe I'll swipe some of that chocolate here while I'm setting up. All right, I think that's it for now. Maybe I'll drop a pin here. You guys can see where I'm at. I got to get up on these videos. I'm so behind. All right, later.
Well, I got all set up and sunset, moon came out. It was almost a full moon, really bright. These shots look like they're taken during day, but this is at nighttime, middle of the night. Those are stars you see in the city lights out in the horizon. You can see the shadow of the solar panels from the moon. The moon is much higher than the sun, so it's kind of interesting how as the Earth rotates and the sun gets lower and lower in the winter, the moon on the opposite side gets higher and higher. So full moon, when the moon is directly opposed to the sun on the other side of the planet, you rotate into it and boom, you got high noon in the middle of the night. It's pretty cool. So I pulled out my camera or my phone and got some cool night shots. It's a little blurry. I couldn't hold it super steady, but it was like being outside at middle of the day. It's pretty cool. I'll give you a quick walkthrough of my setup here. Here's my cozy tent. Just finished cooking breakfast. Got all my electronics. And I got the array. This is for the tent. This one little panel is more than I need. In fact, I'm just boiling water to burn off some energy. I want to see how much power I can generate in a day if I'm using it all. And the big array, still kind of early in the morning, but it's charging the car. And then I've got a little shaded spot here so I can hang out in the heat of the day now that I'm in a warmer area. Still a little chilly right now. Look at that. Kind of a cool view.
just on the border of California and Arizona. That's I-40 right there. So once I'm done charging here, it's a straight shot right to the finish line. I'll be at the hotel, Portofino Inn, and that's it. Almost done. Well, if it's not one thing, it's another thing. This panel's doing great. There's nothing to shade it in the front. The angle's good. You see how large that shadow it's casting. It's really collecting a lot of energy. I think over 100 watts right now. These panels, not so great. It's so late in the year. The sun is so low in the sky that even stretched out as far as I can stretch them out, the panel is shading the panel behind it. And that little bit of shade has a huge effect on the efficiency, it has a huge effect on the amount of energy the panel can collect. So these first two strings, which is 2 by 8 here, so that's string 1, and string 2, that's on one controller, all operating at the ideal angle, but casting a shadow, because I can't space them out any further. The cables aren't long enough. And then these next two strings, which are on a second controller, I've laid them flat, or laid them down as far as I can go. You can see the stand is right up against the back panel. I didn't lower the back panels because they're not shading anything, so I can leave them up. But everything else is laid back as far as it can, and I'm going to monitor the energy harvest here and see how good that does. I can compare this string against this string, and then I think tomorrow I'll just take all these and I'll just throw them completely flat and see, because it looks like they're performing so poorly with the shadow that I'd be better off just letting them completely flat, which is kind of a shame because this panel's getting 100 watts no problem, which means I could be getting 6,400 watts if I had longer cables. But since I don't, it's really hurting me. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'll pull them up and you'll see it's not looking rosy. Good news is this is my last stop, so I will be on the road soon. It's sunny, the weather's good, so at least I got that going for me. And then once this is done, I don't care. I hit the finish line. So straight shot from here to Portofino Inn. That's good news. But just by the skin of my teeth here, the sun is so low that I'll make it. But man, it's been almost 2 months. Way too long for this. Well, this is a bit of a disaster. I should be getting peak solar radiation right now. I'm only getting 2.25 kilowatt because I got to lay everything flat because it's super windy and the stakes just aren't holding in this ground. They're just pulling out. They go in, there's all kinds of rocks underneath, so they barely go in, but then they pull out super easy. So, I don't know. I thought this last stop was going to be easy. Warm, sunny. Nope. Not easy. Well, I'm out here a little longer than I thought I was going to be, so time to food ration. Cottage cheese and crackers for dinner tonight. Yummy. Alright, I've been camping out in the tent. It's been kind of miserable outside. Windy, a little bit chilly, but I need to get out. Got it kind of fixed up here because it was getting really dusty inside. So I put some extra protection on the tent. Now what? Panels are safe. Panels are safe. I need a jacket. It's kind of cold. So this is my attempt to windproof and dustproof my tent. I took my shade tarp here and stretched it over the tent. Getting a lot of dust. People riding their motorcycles and whatnot out here, kicking up dust, and it's just blowing right into my tent. So now I'm a little more protected from the wind and the dust. My panels are protected from the wind. They're all flat, which means I'm hardly getting any SunPower. Except this guy, I got this one staked down pretty good. But these, they just keep pulling out of the ground. So I got them double staked each. And they're doing all right. Kind of a bummer of a day, but yeah, what are you going to do? Almost done. Almost done. I'm just out for a little hike. It's kind of windy and I'm kind of marooned here. Charging slow, so close to the finish line, but so far away. Just stuck. Probably another 3 days. Hopefully not a fourth. I don't know. I should have enough water, but I'll be running out of food probably on the third day. But it's beautiful up here. Not much to do. Maybe I should work on posting some videos. Yeah, I'm not too good at that. But I heard something. Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Well, I did it again. I ran it completely dead, although I'd say it wasn't completely my fault this time. And it took me a while to figure it out, so while I'm figuring that out, maybe this is a good time to talk about battery management systems and what went wrong. So I pulled up this chart from my inverter, and you can kind of see the plot here. And I was trying to figure out what went wrong first. I had a lot of things trip out at the same time. Got negative 100°C temperatures and all kinds of odd stuff. But I was looking at my battery voltage, and right before it tripped and everything went to zero, I was 48.3 volts. But my SOC, or state of charge, was 35%. So I looked in the battery manual, and the cutoff voltage for this particular battery is 48 volts. So when the battery detects 48 volts, it shuts the whole system down. And that's what happened. However, it was still reading 35% state of charge. And that's because battery management systems have a few ways of calculating SOC, or state of charge, depending on kind of the complexity and the engineering that went into the system. This is a pretty simple battery, so I'm assuming it's not overly complex like an EV would have in their battery management system. So how does it work? Well, your typical voltage is not how it reads per state of charge. It's actually looking at how many amps go in and how many amps go out, and then it calculates state of charge from that. And the reason for that is if you use voltage is not consistent. So as you charge it, the voltage will go up, and as you discharge it, it'll go down, but it'll actually, boost or sag depending on how fast you're charging or discharging it. So you could be at 50% state of charge, and if you're charging it really fast, you're going to see a really high voltage. If you're draining it really fast at the same state of charge, you're going to see a much lower voltage. So you can't use voltage alone. Now, if you let everything settle and reach steady state and there's no current in or out, then you could use it, but you have to know and be monitoring how much current you've been drawing to be able to do that. So I think what happened here is I've been running and charging this battery and discharging it up and down throughout the day, and it's been counting amp hours in and amp hours out, and it's been keeping track of it, kind of like at a store where they have a clicker, someone manually clicking how many people go in, someone clicking how many people go out. And you take the difference and you know how many people are in the store. Well, over time, error creeps in, and that count is going to get off. And you want to kind of reset the system and say, okay, how many people are really in the store right now, and call that your new normal quantity, or in this case, state of charge. So it's been going up and down and counting amp hours. Another way that error can creep in is drawing current from the battery when it's cold or excessively hot can change the efficiency of it. So you draw 10 amp hours cold versus at 70 degrees. At cold, it's going to actually pull more than 10 amp hours out of the battery. Even though it's only putting out 10, there's going to be more internal losses. Same if it's overly hot, or let's say the current is double or triple, you're going to have a lot more resistive losses internal to the battery. So that that method isn't 100%, but it's a lot better than trying to monitor voltage. So what happened is it got off, and it still thought it had 35%, and it kicked the battery off, shut off the BMS, and then read 0 volts on my controller, which then set it into an alarm state. And then once it went to 0 and I got it turned back on, it then reset the state of charge meter at 0%. So typically on these low-cost battery management systems, it'll reset the state of charge at either 100%, so it fully charges the battery, then it'll say, okay, this is my new 100, or it'll fully drain it and say, okay, this is my new 0 point, and then it just starts counting from there. I know the Tesla has got a much more advanced system. Sometimes when I was charging, I would let the car sit overnight after it's been charged up and down, but it hasn't ever fully chopped off. And the battery management system will rebalance all the cells, and in the morning it actually said it was 2% more state of charge than the night before. So I'm sure Tesla has a more advanced system for monitoring the state of charge. So anyhow, I eventually figured out and get it working again. The trick seems to be you unplug the communication port to the battery, and the inverter will send out a signal to the battery, or a voltage, and it realives the whole system, and it's all back up and running. So I don't think all inverters do this, but this one does, and it's a really nice feature. I've heard of some systems where if the battery gets below and the BMS turns off, then you're kind of dead in the water, and you have to have some kind of electrical jump where you physically give it 48 volts and start charging it just to bring the whole system back online. So this has saved me more times than one, and nice feature. Thanks SolarArc for having that in your inverter. Okay, it's on. It's freaking on. I almost got a full charge. One more day and I'm ready to go. This should be my last night here. The sun is set. The moon is rising. This is actually moonrise. And I've got a new neighbor. She's living out of this van with a pretty good sized rigid panel on top, enough power to power a refrigerator and everything she needs. Here the moon is coming up. It's going to be a bright night again. It's not a full moon. The full moon has already passed and now it's starting to wane. But at this point I don't care. I'm almost there. I should be able to pack up tomorrow morning and hit the road, and I will be to the finish line. So my next video should be arriving at the Portofino Inn Hotel. I've got a few packing items to take care of in the morning, and I am off.